Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I thought I'd just come on and do a review. Yesterday I talked about some of the things I got for Christmas this year from my family. And I mentioned that I would come on and do a review of some of those items. So here I am doing a review, and I thought we'd start with these watercolour journals. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get the plastic cover off. I've got two of these. I'm only going to open one for now. And the other one's over here. You can see it here. So these are by DingDongTu, apparently. Watercolour journals by DingDongTu. They're 19.6 centimetres by 19.6 centimetres, the page size. 300 GSM. I don't know what that is in pounds. I'll write that down later. And 20 pages in each book. Now on first inspection they look quite nice. It's a slightly off-white colour. Oh look, I've just noticed you can actually, hang on. Okay. Oh, okay, the bars are holding the rings together so they don't keep spinning around. They're hinged. So over here it looks like we can actually undo them. Yes. So we can add and remove pages. So that's pretty cool. I'm quite impressed with that so far. I thought we'd do a bit of a test to see how the water behaves, and to do that we might just swatch one of these. I won't open one of the new ones yet. I got this master level. This is another thing I got. The Superior watercolour palette. And the reason I asked for that is because I've had one previously, this one, and I love the paint. So let's just use some of this paint to test out this paper. Where's a brush? Okay. I'm just going to, I don't have a lot of room here, sorry. I'm just going to spritz my paints a bit to activate them. And let's start with a bit of wet on wet. The brush isn't as clean as I thought it was. It's running, but I have seen these paints run quite a bit more than what it's doing at the moment. Some nice blooms happening. Let's try some what else can we do? How about a bit of lay this bit down and we'll come back and see if we can do a bit of glazing. Let's try a bit of there's quite a bit of movement with that colour, which I don't think I've seen happen like that before. Don't know if you can see don't know if you can see through the camera, but it's actually going quite grainy, which it doesn't normally do. So I'm assuming that's due to the paper. There's this funny, it's not a granulation, not a normal granulation, it's just going gritty, I suppose. I'll come back to this and do a different glazing on this one later. Let's try a bit of a scrubber test. Maybe not, this brush is hardened, I mustn't have got all the... Okay. Now, with this test, I haven't done this one before, so it's going to be a bit of trial and error for me. But I'm trying to see how long I can... That was only about 5 or 6 seconds, I think, before that paper started to tear and become unstable. You can see the bits of paper that have lifted. I might try that again, and I'll focus more on counting instead of scrubbing. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to start counting now. Yeah, you can see the bits of paper there. I think I might have got to about 7 or 8 seconds that time. I probably should have had a timer to be more accurate. So that's a bit disappointing. I would have liked to have seen that go to 11, 12 seconds before that starts to peel in like that. It's a bit disappointing. I'm going to... I'm just going to lift a bit of this water off over there. Or maybe I'm just undecided whether to leave it or not. I should leave it to see how the paper reacts. I'll do that down the bottom instead. So I'm just going to lift a bit of that out of there so it doesn't take as long to dry. Now let's do some lifting. Maybe too much, way too much water in that. Now let's see if we can lift. Now that has actually torn the paper. It's lifted the paper, which is not what we wanted. Admittedly, I did pull the tissue paper down a little bit, but normally I can do that without the paper tearing. Let's try it with I can actually see the paper tearing under that brush as well. Very soft with the brush, and that's still compromising the paper. That's very disappointing. I thought this would handle a lot better, this paper. Now let's do our very wet down the bottom. Lots and lots and lots of water. And then, just for good measure, I'll add a bit more water. That's just water. So we've got a very wet spot down the bottom there. I want this to dry now, so I'll get my dryer. I stood on my dog's new toy she got for Christmas. It's okay, Bunny. Okay, I'm just gonna... I feel like this has taken a lot longer to dry than it normally would. I feel like it doesn't normally take that long for paper to dry. So it's still not quite dry in some places. See here, it's still quite damp. It's still damp along that outer edge too. So I don't know if you can see from where you are there, but especially here, well, where the very wet spots, the paper's it's all warped. Can you see that? It hasn't stayed flat like you would expect watercolour paper to. So that's disappointing as well. Now, a couple of other things I wanted to try. And again, this is not an extensive test because I'm quite new at this. I don't really know what I'm doing. I've just watched a few other tutorials, but I thought it would be interesting to show you how these products fare. So I just wanted to do a bit of glazing over this one. Yeah, it's not taking well at all. It's not blending, it's not behaving the way I would expect it to behave at all. So that's a bit disappointing again. I want to try another glazing technique. I mean, it's laying down, but because this paint here has granulated and grained up so much, it's not giving me what I would normally expect. It seems to be standing up to the layering though, which is good, I suppose. Although that, I don't know if you can see, those colours are starting to run a bit in there, which I didn't want. I've lifted them up. Normally they don't lift that easily when I do this technique. And all I'm doing is laying down some colour shift watercolour over that existing paint. Now I'm just dropping some in. That's all. So, all in all, I've spilt some on the inside of the cover. You can see the the colour shift paint seems to have been relatively successful. Oops, tipped that too far, you silly Billy. I forgot it wasn't dry. But I'm not really impressed with this paper. I'm quite disappointed. I thought it would be a lot. Yeah, I don't think I've ever come across such a paper that's behaved this extremely, to be honest. That's this distortion in the paper. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. I mean, I know it happens, but I don't think I've ever actually seen it happen. So that was the DingDongTu Watercolour book. It's a 300 GSM. And they are, it does feel like a 300 GSM. But yeah, I didn't expect that. I can't remember if it's cellulose or cotton. I thought it was actually cotton, but I've never seen cotton behave like that. So that's all I can show you for now for that watercolour book. I'd love to hear your experiences with them if you've tried them out. Also, if you are an experienced watercolour artist and do know what you're doing, if you'd like to have any useful input into this, I would really appreciate it. I'm sure we all would. Yeah, so don't know if you can see. Most of these colour shifts have worked quite effectively. The paint hasn't lifted underneath them. The paper's pretty much stayed quite sound, except for this one. Remember I said when I was doing it that it was lifting the paint underneath? You can see that the colour shift hasn't really sat on top like it normally does either. So that's interesting too, because this was a very wet piece, probably just as wet as that, if not more wet. This one doesn't seem to have soaked in, it's stayed on top, but this one's soaked in, so that's interesting. So there you have it. There's my review on the DingDongTu DingDongTu watercolour spiral bound book. Thank you for joining me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and if you've tried them out yourself, let us know how you went.